Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for On.NET Live. My name is Cecil Phillip, and in this stream today, we're going to learn about how we can run PHP applications on .NET using a really cool open source project called PeachPie. And to help me do that, I got a friend of mine from the PeachPie project, and this is Jakub. And Jakub, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone and just say hi and let everyone know who you are.
So hi everyone. So my name is Jakub, and for a few years already, since the university, I'm working with my friends on a project PeachPie. We are working actually for a long time already with PHP technology in Visual Studio, in Microsoft Visual Studio on .NET. So we already providing like editor, code analysis, and everything. And in addition to that, we are also compiling PHP to .NET, like making the entire frameworks and entire applications that run on PHP running the same way on the .NET technology. So that's what we do, and it allows to create great possibilities to combine those both worlds together to make interoperability and running like PHP in technology that was never possible before. So it's interesting to show some stuff today, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome, and I'm looking forward to it too. But before we do that, I want to get into some links that I want to share with the community. So let me share my screen really quickly. The first thing I want to share with everyone. So this month of February is a very special month because there's a lot of stuff going on. First thing that I want to talk about is the next .NET Conf Focus event. And this is going to be a focus on Windows or a focus on desktop. So if you come over on February 25th, head over to focus.netconf.net, and there's going to be tons of great free sessions from the community, from members of the .NET teams, and they're going to be talking about building applications for Windows. I think they're going to talk about Windows Forms, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some talks about Blazor in there, and there's going to be some talks about UWP and WPF for like all of these great desktop technologies. So I know some folks have been like, oh, you guys don't talk about desktop. Well, here you go. You have a whole day for us to talk about building stuff on the desktop. So head over to .NETConf, .NETconf.net, and make sure you check out the Focus event. Again, that's on February 25th. And then you come over here and you can make sure you save the dates. Next thing I want folks to know about, you may or may not know this already, but our show is a part of a whole ecosystem of shows that our friends at the .NET team put on, and it's called .NET Live TV. So that means that you can come here and you can not only see our show, this is us right here. This is very meta, actually. But you can see our show, and you can see all the other great shows that happen within, within the live streaming space. So, here's us. There's the Visual Studio show. There's the .NET Doc show. There's a .NET Community Stand-Up, C# Corner. Like, there's tons of great stuff here. This month in particular, I think the focus is going to be on web APIs. So you're going to see, across all these shows, we're going to start doing some themed months kind of things, which I think is going to be really cool. So this month is web APIs. So notice on February 11th, we're going to be talking about Swagger with Richard Morris. I believe Brady Gaster, our friend Brady, is going to be doing some content around web APIs as well. We're talking about Web Today with PeachPie, so that's going to be really cool too. So if you're interested to know what folks are doing and talking about, I definitely recommend you head over to .net.microsoft.com/live. Check out .NET Live TV, and you can see some of these great things that are here. Now, the last thing that I wanted to mention for folks is it is Black History Month, and so I wanted to take a moment, one, to just acknowledge the moment, and two, also talk to you about one of the great projects that I've been I've had the pleasure to work with over the past couple of years, and this is the Hidden Genius Project. So we have some friends of ours that are over in California that put together this program that give free computer science education to a lot of underprivileged youth within their communities. And not only free education, but they get free transportation, they get laptops, they get free food, they get mentorship opportunities, they even get opportunities to come back and teach some of the new students that they've been there before. So again, this is a great project. If you're interested in learning about some ways that you can give back and volunteer or donate or anything like that, definitely go ahead and check out the Hidden Genius Project, which I think is a really great initiative. So there you go. Those are my links that I wanted to share today. Now, let's head over and Jakub, I'm going to put the focus on you a little bit now. Now we're going to talk about PeachPie. So why don't we start off with some of the basic questions, right? Tell me, what is PeachPie, and what are some of the problems that you're trying to solve with it?
Well, PeachPie is like a code name for a set of tools for the whole platform, actually based on Microsoft's Roslyn compiler platform. So we are taking advantage of everything that C# has, C# compiler has, and all the tooling around. We are building the compiler on top of it. So we can actually take the PHP code, PHP project, or whatever, and compile it the same way as the C# compiler compiles its source code, with the same properties, the same project files, the same IDEs. So I can now open projects in PHP language, open in Visual Studio. I can build them, publish them. I can make references with other .NET languages, and so on. And as I said, it's a set of tools. It also includes like middlewares for ASP.NET Core. It includes an APIs for easy integration between all those languages, so I can make calls between PHP and C# without any overhead, because PHP is now a regular standard .NET language, and so on. So this is the PeachPie. It's the whole compiler of the PHP language to the .NET, making the PHP really native language of the .NET ecosystem.
So I know we talk about languages a lot. We often talk about different versions. And so one of the things I'm curious about, do you support different versions of PHP, or can I just take any PHP code and it'll just run? Like, I'm kind of curious how you handle language versioning when it comes to PHP.
Yeah, right. Actually, PHP is trying to be backward compatible. There are some major differences between versions, but basically everything depends on the parser. So if the parser can understand little differences, we are okay with it. So we have a parser of the PHP language that we can tell him now parse in the PHP 7.4 compatible mode, and it'll just treat the code like that. It's just similar to the C# language level properties or language level settings. So we actually treat it the same on the language level. We treat it the same as the C# language. We have those language levels, and we can just say in which version of PHP we would like to be compatible during the parsing and compiling. And then there is a set of class libraries, set of base functions, classes, constants, everything's like natively included in the language. And you can just reference the subset of the language you want. So if you don't want to reference the latest PHP 8 features, you just won't include a reference to this NuGet package. So that's the way how we treat different language levels. Pretty the same as a C# does, but for PHP.
Okay, and then also when it comes to like the core library, like the base class library in .NET, and I'm sure PHP has a core library as well. Is there any, like, what's the interoperability between those? Can I use PHP stuff and .NET stuff, or I can go back and forth or mix them together?
Yeah, actually we rewrote everything that is included in PHP into C#, into .NET. So all the little functions and classes that are included, like the standard in PHP,
yeah,
is rewritten into C#, taking advantage of all the existing .NET NuGet packages, .NET functions, methods, and everything's there. So it's funny because the resulting project is like much smaller than the C sources of the PHP, because it takes advantage of .NET, of everything that .NET offers. So we've been able to rewrite all those PHP functions pretty quickly. And also we have like thousands and thousands of tests, so we know it behaves the same as in PHP.
That's good.
But
and does it mean that you also got some performance improvements as well, since you rewrote them in .NET?
Yes, there was a big improvement thanks to .NET 5. It was like 20% for free. Also, when we learned how to write the code better, like taking advantage of return-less spans and so on and so on, and making less allocations, etc. So that helped a lot. Currently, we are like the same as the newest PHP. PHP also did the great optimizations and performance improvements. So we are like the same. But if you are about to compile your PHP code, you can take advantage of some tricks, some compiler stuff like declaring constants in advance during the compilation time, so making the code smaller and faster, so you can optimize the code using compilation as well. So using little tricks like presetting some constants that are constants, but in PHP nothing is constant, but we can say it's a constant because we are compiling it. We can make the WordPress like 20% faster than it was the previous version. So you can do those tricks.
So that means that even as a WordPress developer, even if I don't know anything about .NET per se, but if we decided to just have our infrastructure run our WordPress sites on .NET, I should see some form of performance improvement for that.
Yes, for example, in WordPress, we are taking advantage of the ASP.NET Core response caching, which is like below 1 millisecond fast. It's super fast. So you can see some improvements if you do it right. It's still like in the development, but we are trying our best. Currently, I would say it's better suited for C# developers because they understand how it works. But we have some projects, some deployment one-click buttons to deploy precompiled WordPress to Azure, for example.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah, so we can do that as well.
All right, that's awesome. I think we've spoken a lot about this, and I'm really curious to see what this experience looks like. So why don't you go ahead and get your screen ready, and I could like take a look in the chat and see what people are talking about, and we can kind of get some demos going, because I think that'll be great.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to like stop and start frequently because I have really huge screen. So sometimes I have to just change the resolution and share the whole screen. Sometimes I have to just share a window, so it will be a little tricky in here. But
When you say you have a really large screen, how big is your screen exactly?
I have it right here. It's like 47 inches or something.
So you have like one of those mega wide ultra
It's
screens.
like super wide screen, but luckily I can set the resolution to something meaningful, and you won't see a difference. Anyways, it's crazy. I was going to I was buying a smaller screen, but I
Right.
accidentally bought this one.
I see you bought
I was surprised. Yeah.
but
When I brought a package in my apartment, I was really surprised how big it is.
wow, that's crazy. But what has it been like? And I know this has nothing to do with the show, but I'm really curious. What has it been like for you to do development on an ultra wide screen versus just like, you know, a little bit something a little bit smaller, like a 30, 32 or 28-inch screen?
It's really great. I got used to it pretty much because I was using a lot of screens before already,
Yeah.
and now I can like slice the screen for 3 or 4 separate columns, and I can see a lot of windows at once and work between them pretty nicely. So it's great.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, so I see you sharing your screen. I'm going to put this up so folks can see it. All right.
Yeah. So let's start. Okay, there you are. Let's start with the first sample, right? I would like to show you a little experiment because I've heard I can run any .NET, almost any .NET assembly, any .NET project in a browser using WebAssembly. So why not running PHP in the browser using WebAssembly? Because now, since we can compile PHP to .NET assembly, it should be theoretically possible to run the PHP in the browser. So let's start by something I know. Let's start with a new project, new Blazor app.
So you're saying not only can I build something with ASP.NET, but I can also, is this like Blazor? Are you using Blazor to run PHP in WebAssembly?
I will start with a Blazor, and I will just slowly add more and more PHP to it, and we will see where it goes, how far we can get. Because Blazor is like a really powerful framework. There's a lot of communication between front end, back end, and a lot of JavaScript involved. So let's see what we can get from it in the terms of PHP. But I will start with a pure C# Blazor because it works.
Right.
And I will add more and more PHP stuff to it. So in here, I will start on .NET 5, Blazor WebAssembly app. I don't need HTTPS, and just create. And I should have something like a really small sample Blazor app in here. I think, yeah.
So this is just like the default Blazor template right now.
Yes, this is the default template for the Blazor. And you can see, right, there's some C# in here and some C# events. So if I run it in the browser, is it still? Okay, it's building. And now it's running somewhere. It's pretty amazing because you can debug your C#, which is actually running in the browser, and so on and so on. So there is a lot of work done already. So let's see how far we can get, because we should be able to do the same. Right, so this is in C#. I can put breakpoints, I guess.
Right.
Oh, they don't work. Oh, now they work. Okay, because it takes some time.
Yeah,
Nice.
it takes a little bit, but it does work.
Breakpoints work, everything works. There is some development console, so I can see what's going on. In here, okay, Blazor. 8.6 megabytes. Okay, good to know. So that's nice. That's work. So let's start with some PHP. Obviously, I cannot write just PHP into the C# project because the C# SDK, the Microsoft.NET SDK, which builds this project, doesn't know anything about PHP, and there is no way of some extensibility. So I will create a new project that will be actually compiled by PeachPie. In Visual Studio, I have the PeachPie extension, so I can create new project, new PeachPie class library project. But you can do it even without the, let's call it PHP library. Create.
So then, when you say PeachPie extension, so this is just like a regular Visual Studio extension, right? So I can just go in the marketplace and install
in
it.
Tools extensions, you can just install the PeachPie extension,
Right.
and you can have it, or you can just create the project file by yourself. If you know something about .NET, you know you just need to create a project file, and the project file for the PeachPie project looks like this. It's very the same like a C# project, but instead of SDK Microsoft Net SDK, there is PeachPie Net SDK, and that's pretty much it. That's all the difference. And also we are compiling not .cs files but .php files in here, and the rest is the same. So now I have a project for PHP that compiles to .NET, and I have a sample PHP code in here. Actually, I don't. Oh, let's keep it in here. I wanted it here. And what I can do, I can add a reference to this PHP library. So from this PHP library to my Blazor app. So my Blazor app is referencing this PHP library, which means I can build this PHP library as I'm used to. It runs the PeachPie compiler, and it creates a regular DLL file in here. What I will do, there are some documentary comments, and I would like to see those comments in my code. So I will make some modification.
Yeah, you have to turn on documentation, file generation.
I will just go like this, or I think generate documentation file. Or generate documentation file through, because I would like to see the documentation file as well. And if I open a location of the project, of the PHP project, I should see in bin folder debug, like regular stuff. There's a DLL file, there is XML file with the documentary comments, and there is a PDB file with the debugging symbols, debugging information. So I should be able to debug as well.
Right.
Anyway, I'm here, and I would like to replace, just to try to replace parameter counter, this counter C# code with a PHP. So instead of this counter, I will create my counter in PHP, and let's see if it can run on WebAssembly. So let's create a class counter in PHP.
I also like this because I don't know PHP, so you teach me a little bit of PHP as you're like writing it.
Almost the same, because I think PHP is trying to like absorb some ideas from other languages,
Right.
and C# is one of those languages. So there's a class. It will have a private counter, and I will say this and plus, almost the same. The syntax actually comes from the C language, C++ language. So
Okay.
like everybody should know it, except for those dollars. The dollars are here something. So now I have, and we can try one more thing. I have a lspy in here, which is a tool that decompiles the DLL file back into a C#. So what happens if I first make the fonts bigger and even more? And second, what happens if I like open the compiled PHP code in here? That might be fun. So I will take this PHP DLL, compile, and you
All right,
can
and then
see there
open
is
up
this counter class here.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's similar, but it uses some internal operators like operators set value, PHP number add, because PHP has some weird stuff like floating types where it floats between integers and doubles or when it needs to, and so
Right.
on and so on. But in fact, in the result, there is a regular .NET class counter, and it has a regular method called increment, which means my Razor page doesn't have an idea it is PHP. So I can have, how was it called? PHP library. And you can see IntelliSense even finish it up for me. PHP library counter, and I will create my counter in here, and I can just call it like this. And in here, okay, we need a current count. So we made it public. And counter dot end. It's not there yet, but once I compile it, and it even shows me the tooltip in here. So increment has a tooltip increments, counter has a tooltip a sample class, and so on. So here it is. I should be able to compile my app right now. Okay, it's done, and I should be able to run it and actually see the same results as before, but now the code part is written in PHP language and it should work.
Yeah, and then the code part is part of that code part is in PHP, so that in the network tab, I should see as it's loading up those Blazor assemblies,
yes.
I should see it load that PHP library into the browser.
It's much bigger, and in here there it is PHP library DLL in here.
Yeah, I see there's also a PeachPie library too. There's a PeachPie library.
Yes, there's a lot of. That's another thing. There is a lot of like runtime and base library stuff, and I should be able to. Let's try it first.
Sure.
Okay, this works.
So it works, yeah.
So two things. I should be able to debug, but I'm expecting some issues with it. So let's put a breakpoint, and it won't hit. And actually, I can see in the console there's some issue with debugger engine. So I'm assuming I have to do another thing. I have to specify the debug type in my PHP project. I think embedded should work pretty well.
Oh.
From what I read about WebAssembly, embedded
Okay.
should work pretty well. So let's
Yeah,
try it again.
is it gonna work or not?
It would be awesome, like debugging PHP in the browser and setting breakpoints in the Visual Studio at the same time. That sounds crazy.
That would be so worth it. That would be like I wouldn't even need to continue with the stream. I'll just be like, this is done. Like there's nothing else you could show me after that. That could be any better.
Whoa. So let's hope it works.
That's amazing.
Breakpoint in here, and come on, and hit the breakpoint. Oh wow, awesome.
That's awesome.
That's something.
So and you have PHP in the browser running on top of Blazor, and you can debug it too. That's
and
crazy.
I have debugging, and I can see this weird call stack, like all the JavaScripts in here and stuff. So you can see what's happening when you click on a button in browser and what brings you in this Visual Studio window. That's awesome. And also I have these diagnostics and everything.
Right, okay, and because it is a .NET DLL, all of your existing tooling in Visual Studio should still work, right? So
yeah, like those diagnostics
is working, your locals, your watch window, the memory CPUs, exactly, yes. All of that stuff should still be lighting up.
Right. Actually, the diagnostic window is a great tool. We are using it for all the projects because, like, you see immediately what's happening, where the problem is. Okay, that's awesome. This is working. So there was another like thing. I wanted to make it smaller because it was like 8 megabytes before, and now it's 12. I don't need all those libraries. So what I can do with PeachPie, I can see dependencies like in any other .NET project, and typical PeachPie project has all those libraries as a dependency by default. So in the documentation page of the PeachPie, or I have a little sampling here, I can say something like, okay, I can set a property called disable implicit PeachPie references to true, and when I save it, all those references are gone. But I need some. I need at least runtime and the base library with some basic functionality. So let's add 2 package references instead of all of those you saw on the left.
Right.
I need just PeachPie runtime. It's something you just need to know somewhere written. And there is a variable, so it matches same version of the PeachPie compiler I have, and the library, the base library. So I don't need MySQL stuff. I don't need networking stuff. Nothing. I just need those 2 libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have them in here.
So I'm guessing what will happen is as you redo that app, you build it again, that some of those things would just get automatically.
It will be smaller. Okay, so this is awesome. It's working. You can see target framework is Net Standards 2.1. Output type is library. So everything like you are used to. We can also target not just library, but we can create executable files. So you can create an exe file with written in PHP. Now it's 9.4 megabytes. Actually. So now
Right. So it's much smaller now than it was before.
Sorry.
So it's much smaller now than it was before.
Yeah, like it's 3 megabytes smaller, which is great, and it should be even smaller. The Blazor tells me this application was built with linking, disabled, published application will be smaller. So I hope when I publish it, it will be even smaller.
Right.
So this is great. This works. It's awesome.
I love these type of projects that allow you to bring ecosystems together. Because that's kind of like what I feel you're doing here. Like your project allows folks to bring PHP and .NET and ASP.NET, and then we're bringing them all together. And so you could pick and choose whatever side you want to be on, right? And then they could kind of just work together.
Exactly. Or if you already have a huge application in PHP, like you started programming it in 90s and you still have it and you still need it. With PeachPie, you can actually do a pretty neat stuff like remove some classes and functions from your old PHP code and start writing them in C#. And make the old PHP application thinking it's still there, but it's actually being slowly rewritten into C#. So you can just remove old stuff from the PHP application and slowly writing in PHP while all this hybrid stuff still running and working. So you don't need to like stop working on everything for 2 years, rewrite everything, and go on. You can slowly rewrite stuff.
So to that point that you brought up just now about writing bigger applications, we do have a question in the chat that I want to get to really quick. And this person coming in from YouTube is asking, will you show how to add a C# code that adds some functionality to WordPress, like a plugin or some .NET library? So I'm guessing we are going to talk about WordPress too, but is just to answer the question, is that possible? Can I write C# and have that be WordPress plugin? Really?
It is. We can write. Actually, we have a few WordPress plugins in C# already because we needed Microsoft authentication stuff and so on. And also, actually, all the plugins in WordPress, we compile them into NuGet packages. So, like when we are setting up a WordPress site on .NET, we are actually not installing plugins from sources. We are just referencing NuGet packages that already have those plugins compiled. So. But like everything works together and it's possible, yes. Also, pretty neat stuff is the resulting DLL doesn't contain the original source files. So you can create a PHP application without the original PHP sources, which is something that you usually cannot do with interpreted languages like PHP.
So, as a person that might have written WordPress plugins before, do I miss anything? Like, are there any holes or gaps if I decide to write this in .NET versus PHP?
No, you can call any WordPress API as you was able to call before. So
Okay.
so you won't miss anything. The approach will be different. So there is not that much material, that much documentation about writing plugins in C# for WordPress. So that is something probably I should work on because
We also have a whole community of people here. So if anyone here is interested in working on documentation for an open source project,
yeah, right. that would be awesome.
help is always wanted. You know what I mean?
Anyways, yes, that's right. It would be cool. I'll try to show it in the second half of the demo.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was really looking forward to try one more thing.
Okay.
This page is written in Razor, and I would like to have a page like whole in PHP, because what if I already have a PHP application and I would like to just run it in the browser? I don't want to write the Razor components and integrate it in this weird way. So I was interested, what does the counter page look like when I decompile it in the ILSPy first? Because I would like to do the same thing with PHP. I would like to compile the PHP stuff the same way. So let's see the Blazor DLL in here, and there are pages, counter, and that's what I was interested in. Okay, that's nice. So compiled Razor pages are actually classes that inherit from component base and just overrides this build render tree method where it puts those elements in order. Okay, so let's do the same for PHP. I won't be like altering the compiler to magically understand and compile into components, but I can create my own component here. So let's create a new class. I will call it like PHP component. And it was component based, right?
Yeah, component based.
It's using Microsoft components. And I'm pretty sure this component goes right in this element called app. So in the program right here, in the root components, I'm telling the builder, the WebAssembly host builder, that the app element should be replaced by the app, which is this Razor page, but I won't be using the app. I will replace it with my PHP component here. So now in my root element in here, there will go my PHP component. And there was something like build render tree, yeah, build render tree. That's it. And in here, what I can do with this, almost everything, nice. Add content. Content. Nice. So PeachPie has like extensive API for doing whatever I want.
Right.
So let's introduce one pretty useful object called context. This is something like HTTP context, but for PHP. It's in PHP namespace, and this context represents like a life cycle of my PHP page, my PHP request. So I need it. And I have to initialize it one for this component, and it will allow me to
So it would allow you to interrupt with the component cycle?
like control the PHP code. So I can like run scripts, call methods, call functions, and everything on this one context, because PHP is a dynamic language, and I can like decide what to call, change global variables, change constants, and everything.
Right.
So let's create a new empty context in here. Now I have context, and what I can do on this context, I can do inclusion. So I'll include, or I can, what I can do, I can tell the context to set reference to reflect assembly compiled from PHP to read all the files, all the global code from it, because .NET doesn't have a concept of global code, so we needed to understand the global code. For example, we'll use our counter. I just need a reference to the assembly of the counter. So this PHP library, I just needed the assembly of the PHP library. So now the context reads the files compiled in this assembly, and I can do stuff like context.
So I'm gonna ask you a silly question. But how do you know that's the PHP counter and not the .NET counter? Because there's a counter under pages, right? Is that the right counter?
Right, because I
Oh,
added
space in, right?
I added the using in here, but you are right.
That makes sense.
But that would be a pretty nice bug in here.
Right.
I'll be looking for it like 4.5 hours. Anyways, using this function, I can read the representation of this index PHP script, and I can evaluate the script. So I can run the global code, which is something that is not in PHP. And so the trick I have to do, anyways, this will run the PHP code in index PHP. Usually you don't have to write this kind of stuff, but for now you have to. But now we need the output of the page. So in case we echo something in here, hello from PHP, for example, we need the output from the script. So I can, using the context, redirect the output to my string writer. Using system.io, and my context output can be this string writer. And once I'm finished, I will just tell the builder to add this. Do I have to do something? I think just do string. Okay, so I evaluate the index PHP, and whatever it outputs using the echo statements or print or whatever, or I think I can do some things in here. Like this. It should output to this string writer, and I should be able to write it to the builder. And that's it.
That's really interesting. So now on a deeper level, you're pretty much invoking PHP, but you're invoking it in the browser, and you're capturing that output and rendering in the Blazor component using that hook. That's crazy.
So we should see those initializing stuff happen, and oh, it's already there. It was fast. Yeah, because the breakpoints are bound like afterwards. So okay, so now we have it. If I refresh the page, it's there. So this is the output from the PHP, and what's I'm missing is taking advantage of the Blazor, because in Blazor I can click on something and the page is refreshed, but just only the parts that changed without reloading the page actually in the browser. So that will be pretty neat. And since the PHP is now .NET and it runs in WebAssembly, and there is this neat interoperability between JavaScript and WebAssembly that I can which is actually built in the WebAssembly from the Blazor project. I should be able to make like calls in JavaScript in PHP language. So instead of those old-fashioned links, I should be able to call a PHP function in the link using some like interoperability tricks that should be possible. So let's stop this because the button didn't do anything, and I want this button to actually work, to do something. So I would like function called like test, and this function, oh, I will run this function as a response to this link, but it won't restart the PHP request. The request will be kept alive. It will just refresh the page with the new variables. So in PHP, I can change the global variables, for example, a. So from, or is there something like to get current date? I used to have a sample in here. Actually, I tried it before. So in the variable a, I will put current date and time. So from PHP, it is a. So when I started for the first time, it says as hello from PHP, it's and nothing. But now I need to call this stuff.
Right.
And when I was looking at the Blazor, I've noticed there is like signal error framework. There's a whole ecosystem of being able to call from C# through events to JavaScript and then back to .NET objects and all this weird stuff. And I would like to do pretty much the same in PHP. So what I've learned is I can inject something in my component. I can inject, I think it's called EJS interrupt. Is it called like this?
I think it's IJS runtime. I think is what it is.
Runtime.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yes, it's there. So we call it JS runtime. One more time. Okay. So when my component is being initialized, I can do it async, right? I should be able to invoke a function. Nice. I was looking for this function. And I think I need to pass a reference to this object, to this component, to my function. Where am I? I am in here. I don't have pages. I'm in here. So I should be able to write some script. Actually, those kind of scripts are already included in the Blazor WebAssembly.js. So now I'm writing it like in here in the index.html, but the Blazor framework has everything already, like similar stuff written already in here, I guess. I have to cheat a little, or maybe I'll just switch back to my normal resolution because now I'm looking like
Oh, that's fine. So are we going to
4 or 5 feet big screens?
That's fine. We're gonna go to big screen. That's
yeah,
fine.
it's so let's stop sharing you.
Okay.
Nice, switch to normal resolution for me. Okay, much
But I love how, just even talking about what you're trying to do, we're talking about going from PHP to .NET to WebAssembly, and then also now invoking events using JavaScript. So we're talking about 3 different languages all existing together in WebAssembly and just working together like seamlessly.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But once you realize it's actually the same language, everything except for the JavaScript, but everything is .NET. So everything you can do in C#, you can do in PHP. That's just it. There's nothing more to say about it. Okay, now we are sharing. Yes, I'm sharing screen now. So I'll just write some helper scripts in here. For example, let's create one function called start, and this function will allow me to pass a reference to a .NET object into a JavaScript. So this .NET object is this .NET object. So in this way, I will be able to remember what I will pass in here, and I will do it. In here.
Oh, so you're trying to you're trying to call that start method inside here using invoke, and then you're gonna pass a reference to a .NET object. So you're gonna send it.
Yes, because I will need to call some methods on my component from the JavaScript. So that's why I need to pass a reference to this objects to the JavaScript so I can call a method from it.
Okay.
And in here I called it start .NET. So this will allow me to pass reference to this to the JavaScript. Why is this? So it will just work. You don't have to test it. Also, we need to call something. And I think it's doing using this attribute, just vocable. And it will be method called, for example, call. And again, using our context, our PHP context, and the API. Using this method call, I will actually call a PHP function from the context. So I can call the function in here. So now I'm going to call a JavaScript from JavaScript. I will call the function call in my component.
Right.
That will call a PHP function provided by the parameter. And that's it. Let's put a breakpoint in here and do it in here. And we'll do it like this. I think on click. Yes, on click. And we will call our helper object in here. And we will create a helper method called call. So we are going to effectively call from the JavaScript on click. We will call the PHP function, and then we will refresh this page. So we still need this helper function call in here. Yes. So let's write it in here, and we will use our .NET object in here, and now we can call the call method on it because we just declared it. But it's doing by, I think it's called invoke method async call. So now we say we call the call on our component. So this call with the argument provided in here.
Okay, so yeah, you're specifying the function name as a string. You're passing along the parameter.
Yeah, let's put a bunch of breakpoints in here so we'll see what's happening. So upon clicking on the link, we call our JavaScript helper function. This function will call a method call on our component with a parameter name, and the component will call that specified PHP function using the context. So just let's start it and let's see what's happening. Oh, and Yes, let's see what's happening. Building.
I feel this is like a science project, like one of those mad scientist projects. Like, let's see how many programming languages we can
It's crazy,
squeeze
but actually, if you take a look inside the WebAssembly Blazor API, it's the same. This is actually written in the WebAssembly API. So now you don't see it, but my browser opened, and now I will click.
Oh, we're only seeing Visual Studio right now. Did you open your
Yes,
browser?
you see the Visual Studio, but you will see where the breakpoint hits. So
Okay.
I will click on this button, on the click me button,
Mhm.
and I should see breakpoint hit this call function. So yes.
Okay.
So I clicked here, and now I see the test argument from here. So we was here calling the call method in
Right.
here. This called the call method in C# in here is argument name.
Pass on the argument. Yep.
Now we are here. Now we are going to call the PHP function called test. So we should be back in the PHP function here. So let's continue, and we are here.
Oh wow, nice.
So and we are still working with the same PHP request as we started. So we haven't lost it, because in PHP, once the request ends, when you process the page,
Yeah.
it's just thrown away. But now we are keeping the context, so this page is still alive.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
let's continue. And uh, okay, I will share the screen again because you just need to see it, the whole thing.
I'll be very honest with you. I was a little skeptical at first if that was actually
Me
going to
too.
work,
Me too.
but now seeing it work, that's pretty amazing.
The last thing is we need to refresh the page. So we need to re-render the component. And I'm pretty sure there is something with status in here. State has changed. Okay, so now we tell the component
Oh, your screen's
base.
not being shared anymore, better. You stopped sharing. So you might want to
Okay,
reshare again.
sorry, so I'll delete it and write it again. Where are you? Share screen. Here you are. Thanks.
Okay.
Nice. So I need to re-render the PHP page because I changed some state, and I'm pretty sure the component base has something like state has changed. Nice. So this will tell like the underlying framework that the state has changed, and it should call the build render tree again. So when now we run it, whoa, it's our already. Initializing, loading, and everything. There's the console. So
All right. So the page is rendered.
we click in here, and it's rendering the
Yeah, and I
correct.
can see times changing there at the top as you click on that there.
Yeah. So
Nice.
without reloading the page, it just changes the status of the PHP page and updates it.
Nice.
And I think for the sample, it's everything, because we can also change the location in navigation bar and render different pages and so on and so on. So eventually, we should be able to run the whole PHP application using just JavaScript and WebAssembly in the browser.
Cool. Cool. All right. So Jacob, I know we're just at about an hour, but we did promise people that we're going to show them the
Okay,
WordPress demo. So can we do the WordPress demo really quick so we can
sure.
show how it
Let's
works?
let's do the WordPress demo really quick because it's really simple,
Okay.
and we have a lot of documentation about starting a new page, so you can
Yeah.
always go to PeachPie.io and check it. This is WordPress in PHP, so I can run a PHP server, and on the port and around 5044. On here, I should have regular WordPress in PHP. I have already something in it, and I would like have this. I would like to have the same in .NET. So what I will do, wow, it's slow. What I will do is start a new ASP.NET Core project, an empty one. So create a new project in here. Okay, this is my WordPress in PHP. There's a little hat, yes. And let's create just C#. There will be no PHP, like just a C#. ASP.NET Core application. My app one. Create. Empty ASP.NET Core. No HTTPS for now. .NET Core 5. Create. And we already compiled all the WordPress into a single NuGet package called PeachPie WordPress ASP.NET Core. So what I'm gonna do is I just add a NuGet package reference into my ASP.NET Core application. And as you know, let's search just for WordPress ASP.NET Core, the pre-release version. This one. So there's a package of WordPress 5.6, and I just install the package in my project. And as you know, ASP.NET Core application it's a really great stuff because you can like write your own request pipeline. Everything in the startup class of your application. So as you can see, use routing, use endpoints. You can add static files in here. You can add response caching and everything. And now you can, where is it? Installing, okay. Now it's downloading and installing the package. It has a few dependencies. I just need to do one thing. There's a lot of ways of transferring your old content from the PHP WordPress to a new WordPress. I'm going with just using the same database as before, so I'll just use the same database connection string for the database. So I will keep all my posts on my settings and everything in the same database, so everything will be there. And
Right.
you just need to copy folder. You just need to copy folder.
Like your
the
WordPress content folder?
You just need to copy WP content uploads because all the pictures and attachments are in the uploads folder.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to copy the plugins because you can reference those plugins as NuGet packages. So I
Is
just
that
reference
all?
those.
Is it all plugins, or do you have some
Yeah.
plugins you can reference and some that you can't?
If the like we have compiled like thousands of those plugins into NuGet packages. So most of them are already compiled as NuGet packages. And if there is some package that's not there, you can always in your accept. But there is always an option to create a PHP class library project and put the sources of your custom plugins in this PHP project, like I did with the Blazor WebAssembly.
Okay.
Anyways, now I have the reference to the WordPress core helper. And what I do in the configure services, because it's nice to configure something, there should be add WordPress, which allows me to set options in the way I'm used to from ASP.NET Core. So in here I can change the database host, database name, password, whether it is debug. I can enable or disable response caching and so on. So all the options are here with IntelliSense and everything. Or I can use the app settings.json as usual. And in here, it depends where I want to put it, but I want to put it in the middle of those two middlewares. There will be something like use WordPress.
Got it.
So this will just add a front page of it will just add WordPress to the request pipeline. That's it. And internally it will use the trick I used in the Blazor page to to find the compiled script in the assembly, call it, and so on and so on. And it maintains the PHP context and everything, but it's done by just this little function. And I need to use the same connection to the database as I used before. The other option would be to export the blocks from the WordPress dashboard into an XML, and then to import them into your new WordPress, into the new database. But I'm just going to use the same database. So the user is root, database name is WordPress, password is password. Okay, I should remember it. Now database name is WordPress, database password, database user of the root. I think the rest is default. Also, I need to set where I think it will be the same URL. Let's see. Let's start it because that's it. That's all I need to do right now. Also, it compiles pretty fast because the WordPress is already compiled in NuGet. So, okay, it's a different port. This is one issue that like all users have.
Right.
The URL of the WordPress is something you cannot change easily because once you install WordPress using some URL, WordPress will redirect the same URL over and over. So you see it redirected me back to the original port, to the original URL where it was. But did I remember? I didn't remember. I should see. Okay. Using the options, I can say the home URL. Okay, is this, and it's the same as the site URL. This is something like you have to do with WordPress. Just set those two constants to the new URL, so the WordPress won't redirect you to where it was installed before. Like everyone has this issue, so it's really worth mentioning it twice or 3 times or more.
Right. Okay.
And now WordPress knows it should stay there, and you can see diagnostic window is doing something. Oh, the theme. Okay, I had a theme, so I didn't copy the theme here. Anyways, I can go to the admin.
And someone in the chat, just really quickly as you're doing this, is asking, what database are you running right now?
Right. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm running database in Docker. I have it in here actually.
You're just doing MySQL.
MySQL, the latest one. Since the PeachPie is built on .NET, you can always use the latest database you have. For example, with PHP, if you have older version of PHP, you cannot use MySQL version 8. But with PeachPie, you can always use like the latest stuff because it's all built with the drivers provided on NuGet packages, which are always latest. So that's also pretty neat stuff. Yeah, and that's it. This WordPress is running on .NET, and you can see in the diagnostic window little spikes in here, so it's doing something. I should probably change the theme in here. And so on.
So good, right? This looks like an unmodified, like this just looks like regular WordPress.
Yes, it is regular WordPress. Instead, but it's running on .NET, so you can see diagnostics. You can in the output here you can see PHP warnings, which is weird, but you have PHP warnings in the Visual Studio output window here, and it's a regular WordPress. It's just there is just no PHP at all. It's all without sources in a single DLL file, so it looks the same. You won't notice the difference. We added this small box in here so you are aware of using .NET Framework 5.01, using some memory and so on.
Nice.
but it looks the same. That's actually the point.
All right, so we got some questions coming in the chat. I want to make sure we get to these. Tech Workbench is asking, how do you go about updating themes in the file system? I'm guessing you're talking about WordPress themes specifically in the file system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on GitHub we have a small demo. For GitHub there should be PeachPie WordPress repository that you can use as a template, and it has this special project, So let's try it. If you have some custom themes or something, you can put them into a separate project, and it will get compiled together with your ASP.NET Core site. Or if you use themes and plugins that are standard, which means already provided, like open sourced and in the gallery and everything, you can actually update it from two separate places. You can update it right from the dashboard, but we actually modified the dashboard a little, so it won't download the sources from the WordPress.org, but it will download the NuGet packages of the compiled plugins and themes, and use them, use those compiled versions. Or since everything is NuGet, since everything is NuGet, you can actually like add and update themes right from the application. So if I go to where am I? To manage NuGet packages, I have added a feed.phpio in here, which is a NuGet feed with those compiled like everything. And what do I do that next? This feed. And all the plugins with icons and everything are listed here as NuGet packages, which is a little mind-blowing. So for example, the popular plugin insert headers and footers should be here, and I can install the plugin from the Visual Studio, because when you are building a website in Visual Studio, you want to build it like a project at one place, test it, compile it, publish it on your server, and you have like the entire setup with all the plugins and everything already there, so you don't have to install it separately in the dashboard.
Right.
So in this way, from Get Package Manager, you can install and update plugins like you are used to install and update components. Let's start.
That's cool. And I just want to answer this question again really quickly, because I know we have people that have been in and out throughout the entire stream. I know there's some folks that are asking how and why will be one-on-one WordPress on top of ASP.NET. So for the people that weren't here in the beginning, could you just give us like the 10-second spiel? Like, what are the benefits of me running WordPress this way on top of ASP.NET Core?
Well, basically, if you want the .NET, if you have application on .NET, if you don't want PHP, you can go this way. If you want some performance benefits, you want to try it as well. So those are the main benefits we tried to target with this.
Right. So performance benefits, and again, if you're a .NET shop but you want to run some PHP applications, you could use something like this. And like you mentioned before, you do have access to tons of plugins, existing plugins from WordPress. So if you have certain things that you're used to using, you could still do that as well.
Yes. And you can write new plugin in C# if you want some really performant, fast plugins. by your own. You can write it in C# for WordPress.
All right, awesome. All right, Jacob. Well, we're just about out of time. So before we go, do you have any links that you want to share with folks? Anywhere that you want to send them to? GitHub pages, documentation pages, getting started stuff, tutorials, anything like that that people should look at when they want to get started with PeachPie?
Definitely. If you are interested, if you have some PHP and you want to experiment and play around, if you just want to take advantage of technology, because a lot of people just need to integrate those two words together because they just have to work with both stuffs. The website is peachpie.io. There is quick getting started documentation and a lot of materials, so feel free to try, feel free to start on GitHub and get in touch.
All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and share this link in the chat for people too.
Okay.
I'm going to share this in the chat with folks. So, if anyone wants to go ahead and check out the website and their documentation and anything like that, then that's available. And if you write a cool project, definitely let Jacob know, let his team know, because I'm sure they'd love to hear about some of the great projects that you're working on that use PeachPie.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. We will be back next week. We'll have some more live sessions with different members of the community in the .NET ecosystem. So again, I will see you next Thursday. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.